Chosen ones, 7 signs to instantly recognize if you're energy sensitive. There are moments in life when you feel things that others don't see. You walk into a room, and before a word is spoken, something inside you shifts. You feel the weight of someone else's unspoken grief or notice tension in the air that no one else acknowledges. And you wonder, is it just me? You brush it off, thinking maybe you're too sensitive, too emotional, too much. But what if I told you that what you've been calling too sensitive is actually an advanced spiritual gift? What if your sensitivity to energy isn't a flaw, but a divine compass proof that you're one of the chosen ones, meant to navigate life from a deeper realm, a higher frequency? Energy sensitivity is not about being weak. It's about being open. And in a world that's growing more chaotic, more disconnected, and more emotionally numb by the day, energy-sensitive individuals are not only rare, they're necessary. You are here for a reason. You feel because you're tuned in. You sense because you're aligned. You notice shifts in frequency like a radar that never powers down. You are the emotional thermostat in a cold room. You are the unseen stabilizer in a world that doesn't even realize how off balance it is.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
But the challenge is, most energy-sensitive souls don't even know they're gifted. They've been absorbing stress, pain, and confusion for years without realizing it wasn't theirs. They've been overwhelmed, drained, anxious, and confused, thinking something's wrong with them, when in truth, they've been operating like untrained spiritual instruments, picking up signals without knowing how to filter or interpret them. That's why this message is so important. Because the moment you recognize these signs in yourself is the moment you begin to reclaim your power. So let's begin. The first sign is this: your emotions don't always make sense to your mind. You may wake up one day feeling heavy, even though nothing has gone wrong. You may suddenly feel anxious in a place that looks peaceful. You may cry without a clear reason. That's because your emotional body is not responding to just your own story, it's responding to energy. You are picking up frequencies from environments, people, even collective consciousness. Your emotional compass is so refined that it detects invisible shifts, and your body processes them before your brain can make sense of it. This isn't instability, it's intuition. The second sign: people are drawn to you with their pain. You've probably noticed this your whole life. Strangers open up to you. Friends come to you when they're broken. People seem to feel safe around you, even if you don't say much. Why? Because your energy is calm, grounding, and open. It's like a lighthouse in a storm. Most people are walking around spiritually fragmented, but when they come into your field, they feel coherence even if they can't explain it. You're not just a good listener, you're a healer, a mirror, a frequency corrector. The third sign: you get physically affected by emotional energy. For energy-sensitive chosen ones, emotions aren't just feelings, they manifest in the body. After intense conversations, you feel drained. In crowded spaces, you might get dizzy or anxious. You feel tension in your neck, stomach flips, or sudden fatigue when around certain people. That's not random. That's your energetic body sounding an alarm. You are absorbing or reacting to frequencies that aren't in alignment with you. Your body is your sacred instrument, and it's constantly communicating with you through sensation. The fourth sign: you've always felt different from others, even if you couldn't explain why. As a child, you probably knew things you weren't taught. You could sense when someone was lying. You picked up on the sadness behind someone's smile. You may have been overwhelmed in school, crowded places, or even family gatherings. And because no one else seemed to notice what you did, you learned to hide your gift. But that difference wasn't a curse. It was your marking. The universe chose you to operate differently, not for isolation, but for activation. You were meant to awaken others, but first you had to awaken yourself. The fifth sign: you crave solitude, nature, and stillness, not because you're antisocial, but because you need energetic recovery. After being around people or in intense environments, you feel the need to retreat, to be alone, to sit in silence, to walk in nature. These aren't weaknesses, they're rituals. You're unconsciously cleansing your field, recharging your soul, resetting your nervous system. You don't need to apologize for needing space. It's how you remain clear. It's how you protect your gift. The sixth sign: you're deeply affected by art, music, or beauty in a way most people aren't. A song can bring tears to your eyes. A painting can make you feel like you've known it for lifetimes. A piece of poetry can stir something ancient in your soul. That's because you don't just see or hear, you feel the vibration behind the creation. You're tuning into the energy, the intention, the soul print of the artist. This is what makes you a creator, a dreamer, a visionary. You don't consume art, you merge with it. And finally, the seventh sign: you have a powerful inner knowing that you're here for something more. Even if you can't explain it, you've always felt there's a deeper purpose to your life. You sense that you're being prepared for something, that you've been tested not to break you but to build you. That there's a mission inside you that's waiting to unfold. You might not have all the answers yet, but you know. Deep in your bones, you know you're not meant to live a shallow life. You are meant to change something, to guide, to awaken, to heal. That knowing is not a fantasy. It's a divine reminder. The truth is, energy-sensitive people are not made for the noise of this world, they're made to transcend it. You were not born to fit in. You were born to feel, to sense, to transform. And when you finally understand that your energy sensitivity is not a limitation but a map, a tool, a calling, you stop running from it. You start harnessing it. The moment you recognize these signs in yourself is the moment you begin to walk with power, purpose, and peace. The awakening of the spiritual sensor: how to master your energy sensitivity and use it to navigate life. The moment you realize you're energy sensitive is the moment everything begins to shift, not because the world changes, but because you start moving through it differently. You begin to see that what once felt like emotional chaos was actually data, spiritual information your soul was picking up in real time. You weren't just overwhelmed for no reason. You were tuning in. You were receiving signals from a dimension most people are too distracted, too numbed, or too disconnected to notice. And now that you know, now that you've awakened to this truth, the real journey begins not to escape it, but to master it. Mastery doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you start filtering. It means you learn to interpret the signals instead of getting lost in them. It means you start navigating life like a spiritual sensor, aware of every energetic shift, but no longer controlled by it. You become like an emotional ninja, silent, alert, intentional, and powerful. You don't get taken out by someone else's chaos because you've trained yourself to detect the source, examine the charge, and decide consciously what to do with it. That's the difference between surviving as an empath and thriving as a spiritual sensor. So how do we start mastering this gift? First, we have to understand the architecture of energy. Every thought, every emotion, every word carries a frequency. When you're energy sensitive, you're not just hearing someone's words, you're feeling the vibration behind them. You're not just noticing someone's posture, you're absorbing the emotional residue in their field. This means your nervous system is constantly processing invisible data, and without awareness, that can fry your circuits. But with the right tools, it becomes your superpower. Grounding is the foundation. Without grounding, your energy becomes like a satellite dish with no anchor, receiving everything, but unable to stabilize. Grounding isn't just a spiritual concept. It's an energetic need. You ground through breath, through movement, through connection to the earth. Take off your shoes. Walk barefoot on grass. Hold a tree. Sit in silence and visualize roots growing from your body into the center of the earth. These practices are not just for peace, they're your energetic reset button. They bring you back to your center. They help you remember what's yours and what's not. Next is discernment. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you have to own it. One of the greatest gifts you'll ever give yourself is the ability to ask, is this mine? That one question can change everything. You'll begin to see that 80% of what you're carrying isn't even yours. It's family pain, collective anxiety, emotional debris floating through the atmosphere. And when you can identify what's not yours, you can release it, you can visualize it leaving your field. You can cut cords. You can breathe it out. You can bless it and let it go. This is how you stop drowning in energy and start directing it. Protection is the next level. Not walls, but boundaries. Energetic boundaries are not about shutting the world out. They're about preserving your clarity. You must learn to say no, not just with your words, but with your energy. You can walk into a room and choose not to engage with every frequency present. You can sense someone's pain and choose not to absorb it. That's not cold. That's wisdom. That's spiritual maturity. It's the understanding that you are no longer available to be drained by what you didn't create. Then comes the art of transmutation. This is where you take what you feel and alchemize it. You turn pain into poetry, chaos into clarity, grief into compassion. This is not about bypassing emotion, it's about elevating it. You don't ignore the energy, you engage it with intention. You bring it into the presence of your awareness and ask, what is this here to teach me? What is this showing me about myself, about others, about the collective? And in that question you rise. You become the alchemist of atmosphere, the transformer of tension. You don't just feel the energy, you lead it. And finally, you must trust your gift. The world may not understand it. People may call you too sensitive, too emotional, too intense. But your sensitivity is what allows you to see what others can't. It's what allows you to guide with empathy, to speak with depth, to love with presence. It is not a flaw, it is a frequency upgrade. You're not here to live a numb life. You're here to live in full resonance. So trust the way you feel. Trust what your body tells you. Trust the knowing that rises in your gut before your mind can explain it. That is your compass. That is your guide. So I invite you now to ask yourself something few people ever dare ask with honesty. What would your life look like if you stopped apologizing for your sensitivity and started training it like the sacred gift it truly is? Because you weren't just born to feel, you were born to lead through feeling. You weren't just made to sense, you were made to shift the entire frequency of a space just by walking into it. You're not here to escape the noise. You're here to tune above it. And now that you've awakened to your power, it's time to use it with awareness, with intention, with mastery. Frequency architects, how chosen energy-sensitive souls are quietly reshaping the future of humanity. There's something happening on this planet that most people can't yet see, but you've felt it. You've sensed the shift, the unraveling of old systems, the cracking of outdated beliefs, the breakdown of structures that once seemed immovable. What looks like chaos on the surface is actually the beginning of something sacred, a recalibration, a collective awakening. And at the center of this silent revolution are the energy-sensitive souls, the chosen ones, not leading with loud declarations, not forcing change through resistance, but anchoring light, transmitting higher frequencies, and reshaping the future from the inside out. You see, we've been taught that power looks like control, like dominance, like being the loudest voice in the room. But true power, spiritual power, moves in silence. It moves through presence, through intention, through energy. And this is what you, as an energy-sensitive soul, are here to embody. You are not just a feeler. You are a frequency architect. You don't just observe the world, you influence it. You walk into spaces and shift the atmosphere. You meet someone in their pain and elevate their field just by being with them. You are redesigning the collective vibration of humanity not through force, but through alignment. What most don't understand is that every human being is a transmitter. Every thought, every emotion, every state of being sends out a signal. And when enough of us begin to operate from love, from presence, from truth, we literally reprogram the energetic field of the planet. This isn't spiritual fluff, it's physics. It's resonance. The energy you hold affects the people around you. Your healing ripples out into your lineage, your community, even strangers you'll never meet. This is the quiet miracle of energy work. And chosen ones, like you, are the carriers of this sacred blueprint. But to truly embody this role, you must recognize just how important your frequency is. It's not just about how you feel, it's about what you broadcast. When you choose peace over panic, when you choose compassion over judgment, when you choose truth over comfort, you are not just making a personal decision, you are casting a new energetic pattern into the collective consciousness. You are saying here, this is possible, this is available, this is the next level of human evolution. And others begin to calibrate to it, not because you told them to, but because energy doesn't lie. The most powerful revolutions don't make headlines. They happen in hearts, in subtle shifts, in quiet awakenings. And you are part of that movement. Every time you transmute your own pain, you break a chain. Every time you choose awareness over autopilot, you open a portal. Every time you forgive, release, or surrender, you clear space not just for yourself, but for all of us. That's the responsibility and the privilege of being energy sensitive. You are not here to escape the mess. You are here to upgrade the frequency of it. So how do you do that in a world that constantly pushes you to numb out, to shut down, to stay small? You do it by protecting your light without dimming it. You do it by creating sacred space in a chaotic world. You do it by honoring your intuition, even when it goes against logic. You do it by slowing down, breathing deeper, and remembering that presence is more powerful than pressure. You do it by living in alignment with your own soul, knowing that every aligned act is a ripple in the ocean of humanity. Let me ask you something deeply personal. What if your presence, just your beingness, was enough to change the world? Not through achievement, but through attunement. Not through effort, but through energetic excellence. Would you still doubt your value? Would you still question your worth in rooms that can't yet feel your frequency? Because chosen ones are not always recognized. They are often misunderstood, misjudged, or even rejected because the world has not yet remembered how to feel. But you're not here to be understood. You're here to raise the resonance, to hold the vibration of what's possible long enough for others to rise into it. That's what frequency architects do. They don't just dream of a better world, they embody it, day by day, breath by breath. And yes, it can be lonely. Yes, it can be exhausting. But you didn't come here to follow the crowd. You came here to rebuild the grid. You came to hold the light in the darkest places, to rewrite the emotional code of humanity. And you're doing it every time you choose love over fear, every time you ground yourself when others spiral, every time you feel deeply and don't run away, you're doing it. You don't need a title to lead. You don't need a platform to influence. You just need to hold your frequency with integrity. That's what the future is built on. Not louder voices, but cleaner energy. And you, dear one, are the architect of that future. The return of the inner oracle, how energy-sensitive chosen ones are remembering their divine mission. There comes a moment on every chosen one's journey when the noise of the world can no longer drown out the whisper within. That whisper is not random. It is ancient. It is sacred. It is your inner oracle, your soul's voice calling you home. Energy-sensitive souls feel this call more intensely than most. It's not just a thought or a dream. It's a pull. A knowing that no matter how far we've strayed from who we are, no matter how deeply we've tried to fit into a world that doesn't match our frequency, we are being guided back to the truth. And that truth is this: we came here on purpose. You didn't just stumble into this life. You didn't just happen to be sensitive, intuitive, and emotionally awake while others moved in autopilot. You were sent. You chose to enter this timeline, this planet, this body, because there was something inside you that knew this world would need you. Not in theory, but in practice, in presence, in power. And now the veil is thinning. The distractions are crumbling. The illusions are breaking down. And what's left is raw, real, and undeniable. Your divine mission is coming back online. But here's the part no one tells you. Remembering your mission isn't always some thunderclap of cosmic revelation. Sometimes it begins as a subtle ache, a quiet unrest. A question that won't go away: is this all there is? You feel it while doing the things that used to satisfy you. You feel it in rooms where you used to feel seen. You feel it in conversations that no longer nourish your soul. Something inside you is shifting, not because you're lost, but because you're being found. This is the return of the inner oracle, the part of you that sees beyond the surface, the part that remembers lifetimes of wisdom, lifetimes of service, lifetimes of light work. And it's not about ego. It's about essence. You're not here to be better than anyone. You're here to be in alignment with what you actually are: a guide, a healer, a transmitter of truth. And the only way to step into that fully is to listen deeply, consistently, courageously to the voice within. That voice doesn't speak in fear. It doesn't speak in pressure. It speaks in resonance. It says, "This way." It nudges you toward the path that might not make sense to your mind, but makes perfect sense to your soul. And yes, it takes courage to follow it, because we've been trained to trust everything except ourselves. We've been trained to seek permission, to wait for validation, to ignore intuition in favor of logic. But logic can only take you where others have been. Intuition takes you where you were meant to go. So I ask you now, what would happen if you trusted your whisper more than the world's noise? What would awaken in you if you believed deeply that your sensitivity was not a liability, but a map back to your mission? When you begin to live from that place, life stops being about survival. It becomes sacred. Your choices become aligned. Your energy becomes magnetic. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop fixing and start embodying. You become a living oracle, not because you have all the answers, but because you've remembered how to listen. And in that listening, you hear the collective cry of a world ready to rise, not through force, but through frequency. This is your time. Not to prove anything, but to become everything you were always meant to be: the guide, the healer, the seer, the stabilizer, the activator, the one who walks into a room and raises the vibration without saying a word, the one who trusts their inner oracle more than the external chaos, the one who remembers not just who they are, but why they came. And now that you remember, it's time to rise, quietly, powerfully, authentically. Not for attention, but for alignment. You are not here to be like the rest. You are here to lead the shift, in your own way, at your own pace, with your own light. This is the return. This is the moment. And you are ready.